All right, so think about this, right? The future of money. But what if that future meant, like, way less control over your own cash?
Yeah, that's a pretty wild thought.
It is.
So,
And we're going to dig into this with Whitney Webb. She's a journalist who, I mean, she goes deep.
oh yeah, she really gets into it.
She does. And she's put out this warning about, like, a potential major shift in the whole financial system by 2025. So this is not that far off.
No, not at all.
And, it's not just some random speculation. Her concerns are coming from like real research interviews she's done, and it points to like stuff that's already happening.
Yeah, existing technologies, stuff that's being talked about right now at like the highest levels of finance and intelligence, you know?
Exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack in this deep dive. We're going to lay out her arguments. We're going to look at these technologies she's talking about. And we're going to try to figure out like what could this actually mean for like your financial freedom.
Right,
guys?
exactly. What does it mean for us?
Okay, so let's kick things off with what Webb sees as a possible trigger, like the thing that could set this whole shift in motion. And she talks about a major, like, financial disruption. Specifically, she mentions a cyber attack.
Hmm.
And she even says it could be, like, a real one or a staged event.
Like a false flag.
Right, like a false flag. Exactly. And this isn't just some, random idea she's throwing out there. She connects this to some really serious discussions that have already happened.
Yeah, so she brings up papers from the Carnegie Endowment, which, this is important, involves some major players like private banks, central banks, and even the current head of the CIA.
Whoa.
Yeah. And these documents reportedly like explored this scenario of a cyber attack that targets like the whole financial system.
Mm-hmm.
And then they talk about what would happen next. And they say, well, we need way more data sharing between banks and intelligence agencies.
Wow.
Yeah.
So essentially, they're saying that if something like this goes down, they need even more control and oversight.
Right, exactly. That's the underlying idea, like more control in the name of safety.
Which, makes you wonder. Especially when you consider something else that Webb brings up, the whole CIA Vault 7 thing.
Yeah, the Vault 7 revelations. It definitely makes you think.
It does, because what that showed us was that the CIA had the ability to basically make it look like any entity was behind a cyber attack, like you said, a cyber false flag.
Right, to frame someone else.
Exactly, to frame them. So, like, the technical ability to do that, to, like, misdirect, point the finger at someone else, it's there. So you could totally have a crisis that's, like, blamed on this cyber threat, but it was actually,
Something else entirely.
something else. And
Yeah.
that could pave the way for them to implement these new, much more tightly controlled digital financial systems really quickly.
Yeah, if everyone's panicking, if there's chaos,
Hmm.
you can push through a lot of changes that people might not otherwise agree to.
Right, exactly. And here's where the picture starts to get a bit clearer and maybe more unsettling. These systems she's talking about, they're not just some abstract idea, right? Webb points to the fact that stablecoins and tokenized deposits are being developed and tested right now, and they're being linked to, like, the regular financial world.
Yeah, this isn't just like a crypto thing anymore. This is moving into the mainstream.
It is. It is. And big institutions like JP Morgan, Citigroup, they're involved.
Yeah, those are some big names.
So, okay, just to break it down, like, stablecoins, you can think of them as, like, digital money that's supposed to, like, hold a steady value. They're often tied to an existing currency, like the US dollar.
Right, and then tokenized deposits are basically like digital versions of the money you've got in your bank account.
Right. So it's like everything's becoming this digital representation of, what we're used to.
Exactly. But the key here, and this is where it gets interesting, is that they're talking about combining these digital currencies with digital ID systems.
And that's where it really hits home for, like, our personal finances, right?
That's a big one.
Because Webb's point is, once you connect your digital ID to your digital money, it's like opening this door for governments, companies to track all your spending.
Yeah, they can see where you're spending, what you're buying, all of it.
It's like a complete record of your financial life, and they have access to it.
Exactly. It really undermines like the whole idea of financial anonymity. And it could lead to a system where there's much less separation between what you're doing with your money and like the eyes of the authorities.
Which, I mean, that could even impact how and when you're allowed to use your own money.
Right. It's like suddenly you need permission to buy things, even if it's your money.
Yeah. And they're not going to come out and say, hey, we want to track everyone's transactions. They're going to frame it in a way that sounds reasonable.
Yeah, they're going to have a good story.
Right. Webb says we're going to hear stuff about fighting crime, stopping fraud, protecting national security, all those buzzwords.
Which, I mean, those are important things, but
They are.
the trade-off is huge. You're
Yeah.
giving up a lot of privacy, a lot of freedom.
Exactly. It's like, okay, yeah, we want those things, but at what cost?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
What are we willing to give up for security?
It's like that classic balance between security and freedom, but now it's applied to our money.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's like they're saying, okay, we can keep you safe, but you got to let us watch everything you do with your money.
Exactly. So who's actually going to be in control of this new digital dollar system in the U.S.? Webb thinks it's probably going to be a public-private partnership. So what does that actually mean? It's not just the Federal Reserve, right? She's saying it'll be a collaboration with private banks.
Yeah, and this is key. The same private banks that actually own the Fed.
So it's like the fox guarding the hen house, almost.
Kinda, yeah. And if you think about why they might prefer this model, as opposed to like a purely government-issued CBDC, central bank digital currency, one potential reason, as Webb suggests, is it makes it easier to, like, debank people.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. It might be more complicated politically for someone to just freeze someone's assets directly. But if a private bank does it, it's like, well, they have their own rules.
Right. It's like they're distancing themselves from it a little bit.
Exactly. And we've already seen this happen, right? Financial institutions restricting access to accounts for different reasons.
It's like that whole debate around social media companies and censorship.
Yeah, that's a good parallel.
Like, they say they're private platforms so they can do what they want, but then there's all these questions about external pressure, right? Like, are they really making these decisions on their own, or are they being influenced by, something else?
It's the same idea here. The public-private partnership could give them cover, but it also allows for like public policy goals to be carried out through these private entities. It's complicated, but it's important to understand.
It is. So Webb also says that these stablecoins and tokenized deposits, they're not actually the end goal. She sees them as like stepping stones. What's the thinking there?
Well, her idea is that these existing digital tools, they offer a smoother path towards CBDCs, towards central bank digital currencies. They cause less disruption, and maybe there's less public pushback that way.
So it's like they're using the current system to ease people into this new one.
Right. And by keeping the banks involved, they're using their existing infrastructure, their influence, to make that transition to a fully digital, trackable currency a lot easier.
Like, it's all very strategic.
It is. It's like a well-planned-out game almost.
It is. And it's interesting to look at who's playing this game. You've got R3, a big player. They're developing CBDCs, stablecoins, tokenized deposits, and they're backed by some of the biggest banks in the world.
Yeah, they're a major force. And even Oliver Gale, one of the guys who came up with the idea of CBDCs in the first place, he's now co-founded this company called Fluent Finance. And they're trying to launch a transparent, trustworthy, dollar-pegged stablecoin called US Plus.
So even the guy who was all about CBDCs is now focusing on stablecoins. That's interesting.
It is. It's like a shift in strategy, maybe.
Mm.
And even JP Morgan, they've put out research that says deposit tokens could actually be better than traditional CBDCs.
It's like everyone's exploring these intermediate technologies, right? Like testing the waters before making the big leap.
Right, exactly. It's like a stepping stone, like you said.
But Webb's main concern, like we talked about, is still the loss of financial privacy and control.
Yeah, that's the heart of it all. What does it mean to have money, to have financial freedom?
Right. And Webb herself has said this isn't about making our transactions easier or smoother. It's about taking away our ability to do our financial stuff privately.
Yeah, to be anonymous.
To be anonymous. And her biggest fear is that this leads to a situation where a small group of people have way too much power over how we earn, spend, and just exist in the financial system.
Yeah, they decide who gets to play and who doesn't.
Right. It's a pretty dark outlook. And Webb even brings in perspectives from, like, really influential people, like Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock.
Yeah, that's interesting. She talks about how Fink believes that markets actually prefer totalitarian governments.
Wait, what? Like dictatorships?
Yeah, because they're seen as less risky. It sounds counterintuitive, right?
Uh-huh.
Like less freedom, more control. How is that less risky?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Well, the argument is that those systems are more predictable. There's less disruption from, like, democratic processes, elections, debates, all that.
So they're saying it's easier to control things.
Exactly. And then there's someone like Elon Musk who, he portrays himself as this defender of free speech and all that. But Webb points out some connections that are, well, they make you think.
Yeah. What's she saying about Musk?
Well, it's interesting because he taps into this populist vibe, right? He connects with people who are like skeptical of big institutions of the government, but then he also supports policies that are very much in line with like globalist agendas.
So it's like he's playing both sides.
Kinda, yeah. Like he's for carbon taxes, which is something that organizations like the World Economic Forum are always pushing for. And Webb also reminds us that his companies have benefited hugely from government subsidies and contracts.
So maybe he's not as anti-establishment as he seems.
Right. It's a complicated picture. And all of this, it really reinforces Webb's central point, which is that a financial crisis, especially one that's blamed on a cyber attack, it could be used to advance a very specific agenda for these powerful groups.
So it's like they could use this crisis to their advantage.
Exactly. And remember what happened after the 2008 financial crisis? People were furious at the banks, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of anger.
But if they can frame the next crisis as a cyber attack, like Webb says, it shifts the blame.
It's like they're saying, oh, it wasn't our fault, it was the hackers.
Exactly. And it changes how the public sees things, it changes the narrative. And Webb brings up another point that's really important, something from the UN.
Okay, what's that?
It's about fairness, about equity. The UN has actually acknowledged that all this push for digital infrastructure, it's making the wealth gap worse.
So it's actually benefiting the rich even more.
Yeah, and that's a big problem. But despite this, despite knowing this is happening, the billionaires, the bankers, they're still pushing for these policies.
It's like they don't care about the consequences.
Or maybe they think the benefits outweigh the costs.
Yeah.
Either way, it's a worrying trend.
It is. And Webb also talks about Bitcoin, the recent activity in the market, and she sees it as a sign that maybe a bigger financial shift is coming. But she also acknowledges that the future of decentralized finance, things like Bitcoin, it's uncertain with all this institutional influence.
Yeah, Bitcoin's been volatile, and there are more and more traditional players getting involved.
Yeah.
It raises questions about whether truly decentralized systems can survive in this environment that seems to be moving towards more centralized digital control.
It's a big question. So let's wrap this up. What's the main takeaway from Whitney Webb's analysis?
The big thing is that there's a real possibility that we're going to see a rapid move towards these controlled digital financial systems. And she thinks that a crisis, maybe a cyber attack, could be the trigger. And all these technologies, the stable coins, the digital IDs, they're like setting the stage.
Right, they're laying the groundwork.
And the implications for our privacy, for our financial freedom, they're huge. This is not something to take lightly.
It's not. It's something we all need to be aware of. And it makes you think, right, how could these shifts, this move towards trackable digital currencies, digital IDs, how could that actually affect your daily life? What does it mean for your financial freedom in the future? It's a question worth pondering. And if you want to delve deeper into all of this, make sure you follow, like, and share this deep dive. And you can keep up with more of this kind of content by following What Bitcoin Taught Me on Twitter X, Nostr, Bluesky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.